You're listening to Speaking of Sex, conversations about sex and you with Nathan
and Malika.
Speaking of Sex is a podcast that Malika and I have been working on for the past 2 years or so.
It's for all kinds of folks, that talking about sexuality is for anyone who is sexual. And so our podcasts hopefully kind of broaden their perspective of this organization.
I think that it was something that Planned Parenthood of Western Washington really wanted to get more involved with media and getting some of our messages out there. And podcasting was something that's relatively cheap.
Mm-hmm. And I think we also know that people are consuming podcasts.
So, and folks in our demographic too, the
yes.
target demographic, they're the folks that are listening to podcasts. So it makes sense to go with a medium that they're consuming and listening to. And this may not be as true in the past 6 months, but when Malika and I went to one of the first national podcasting conventions, there was no nonprofits there.
There were nonprofits.
Everybody was talking about how they can use podcasting to make money, or it was
to sell technology,
stuff.
To sell tech stuff.
So we were at this conference and we're like, where are the other nonprofits? Where are the other organizations who are looking to do education or advocacy?
We got feedback on the streets. So we had an encounter on our road trip where this young man had been listening to our podcast.
This moment of we're in the middle of New York City and Washington Square Park, and there's all these millions of people here, and someone recognized us, so it's kind of fun.
So we were standing here asking folks questions, and you walked by, Corey. And you recognized us.
I did, because I just saw the video podcast that you guys put up, and it was just so good. And I knew I was sexuality, they look kind of like those people, Planned Parenthood maybe. Of course, yeah.
Yeah.
Listen to the podcast all the time, and I totally know who you are.
And how did you come across our podcast again?
Well, I'm a sexual health counselor at Swarthmore College.
I think I'm pretty proud of Planned Parenthood of Western Washington for making that leap.
Yeah.
Because thinking from their perspective of wait a second, so we're going to have two people talk about sex for 20 minutes.
One of the things that initially seemed like a challenge was I think people being a little anxious about having our stuff out there in a new way.
Yeah.
Having content with Planned Parenthood's name on this audio podcast, and what are people going to do with that? What might they do? And the fact, again, that they didn't really know what this was, and they just said, okay, so you can record the show and put it where? Okay, great. You're going to put it on the internet someplace, and people can download it. And so at the initial kind of freak out, and then just kind of letting go. And getting really excited, because now everybody's really excited about it.
Yeah. You're listening to Speaking of Sex, conversations about sex and you with Nathan
and Malika.